Submitted for the approval of the Midnight Society.
Oh, joy!
Let's rock.
It makes me wanna fart!
Dear Journal, it's me, Doug.
Do you have it?
Baby's gotta do what a baby's gotta do.
That was a hoot!
On your mark. Get set.
Oh, here it goes!
Welcome to Splat Attack, where we're taking it back to the slime-filled past. I am your co-host, Brett.
I am your other co-host, Alex, and I believe we have a special guest with us again today.
Yes, we actually invited him to our Thanksgiving table, set up everything, got the turkey on, and he's going to join us for this feast. Guest, will you reveal yourself to us, please?
Hi, my name is Joey Ahlbum. I'm the animator, one of the animators for Thanksgiving feast, and the turkey is delicious.
Awesome. I'm glad we cooked it to your liking. Yes.
Slaved on it all day.
Pretty much. Yeah, it's not easy. But we're here today to talk about Nick's Thanksgiving Fest, which is a unusual bit of Nickelodeon animation. Well, not necessarily animation, but like a piece of history, because it predates the Nicktoons era before, Nickelodeon was known for original animation content. So it's kind of like the testing grounds for, creative ideas to kind of get their footing. And I know Vanessa Coffey produced this, was like one of her big jobs when she came over to Nickelodeon and worked with you, Joey, as well as two other people who did the other animated segments, which we'll talk about later. Would you like to share any comments or memories tied to the Thanksgiving Fest before we kind of dive in?
You have it pretty correct. It fell between doing IDs for them and working on a pilot for their Nicktoons. So I think it was kind of their way of testing the waters and also getting their feet wet with animation, longer form animation production.
It was a good way to see how short form animation can expand to a half hour, and if it worked for them, then they can do more of that. So that's what we ended up getting. And I think whether people know about it or not, or appreciate it or not, it's still an important part of Nickelodeon history.
Absolutely.
So for those who don't really know about it too much, we'll shed some light on the subject tonight. So beginning with the air dates, I actually found out that there are 3 dates from 1989, where we have Wednesday, November 22nd at 7 p.m., Thursday, November 23rd at 1 p.m., and Friday, November 24th at 4 p.m. So pretty much, all around Thanksgiving. And this was from the Daily Herald newspaper that I looked up in the archives.
And I believe that this also re-aired almost every year until like 96.
Yeah, which is surprising. And that's how I found out about it too, because I first saw it like in between some Nicktoons while I was waiting for my family to set the table at my grandmother's house. I was in 2nd grade at the time, and I really was drawn in by like the animated style of your cartoon segments, actually, Joey. So, there's a little bit of a connection there for inspiration for what I do.
And I think you can find it on the web, right? Or on YouTube
Yes.
a little bit?
Yep.
Yeah, it's you can find it on YouTube. You can find it on archive.com. Was it .com or is it .org?
Archive.org. Yes.
.org. But there are a couple places that you can find it.
Yeah, it's accessible. I think we'll just mention a few things here before we go over the plots of the different segments, because what Nick's Thanksgiving Fest is comprised of is essentially 2 like around 10-minute cartoons. There's Thanksgiving Dream, Thanksgiving Nightmare, and then there's the in-between indents called Thanksgiving USA spots, and there's like 3 per like in-between segment. So it rounds out everything very nicely. So you get a good variety throughout the half hour.
What I remembered was also that my segments kind of reminded me of a classic 1940s Warner Brothers cartoon where they would do those kind of like trip to the zoo. Mm-hmm. And then it would be a whole bunch of gags around like going to a zoo and the funny animals. And I kind of like that format.
Yeah, it's fun. It's quick. It's very eye-catching, and it's just fun to watch. So I'm definitely with you there. And who knows, maybe it would have been the inspiration for some of your later works like Zunatics when that aired on the What a Cartoon show on Cartoon Network.
Yeah, definitely.
Just a little bit of trivia about Nick's Thanksgiving Fest before we dive in. I did notice, as Alex mentioned before, that this aired reruns until 1996. And I thought it was interesting that the Nickelodeon president at the time, Geraldine Laybourne, left her position and shifted to the Disney ABC network at the time. So it seemed like there was a changing of the guard in 1996 as Herb Scannell came in to take over her place. Other than that, the only other holiday special produced in the same vein as this Thanksgiving one was a half-hour animated pilot called Christmas in Tattertown, which aired on December 21st, 1988, a year before, and was directed by Ralph Bakshi, which is pretty interesting because he's known for like Wizards and Fritz the Cat, more adult-oriented animation, that kind of thing. So it first opens up with like a presidential sounding theme, and we're in a classroom. And there's a narrator who's talking about Thanksgiving and how it's like a special holiday that people often remember. And we kind of zoom in into the camera where we see like a big turkey drawn on Thanksgiving on the calendar. And then I believe it cuts to like a turkey walking as the narrator's trying to interview the turkey, but he ends up running away, which I thought was pretty hilarious.
And pretty much most of the USA segments were all centered around trying to ask a turkey a question.
Yeah, that was the running gag throughout each 3 batches of segments throughout the episode. And I think, do you remember the third one before it starts Thanksgiving Nightmare?
Was it the cranberry?
Oh yes, I love that one a lot. Do you remember?
That was my favorite one.
Do you remember anything about animating those segments, Joey?
The one thing that always comes back to me was at that time it was still all ink and paint. So we were, it was a lot of work, it was hand inking on cells and then painting the cells and filming them under an Oxberry and, transferring the film to tape. So it was very labor intensive, and it's a lot easier now.
Yeah, thanks to modern advancements in technology, most people who animate nowadays just do it all within the computer. But I still have a respect for the craft because for those who don't know, I have a animation degree from Rochester Institute of Technology, and I actually majored in 2D animation. So some of our classes actually required us to do the old-fashioned ink and paint, form with what's it called, acetate or cellophane, clear translucent paper.
They called it cells, yeah.
Yeah, and we used like a down shooter camera, and I just remember being like, wow. This is a lot of effort that doesn't see it seems very effortless on the TV by comparison. So the point I'm trying to make is that I developed a whole new appreciation for it as a result of doing it.
Do you remember how many cells you had to draw per second of film?
Shot everything on 2. So it was 12, usually around 12 drawings per second.
Okay.
And you try to reuse some stuff and have some animated cycles and cut some corners, walk cycles and stuff like that.
Most people don't notice unless you're in on it.
Yeah.
Thanksgiving Nightmare is written and directed by Kevin Altieri, who is a storyboard artist for Batman the Animated Series, The Real Ghostbusters, and later Pearl Jam's music video for their song Do the Evolution. You can check out all 51 of his credits over at IMDb, where he's still storyboarding, directing, and editing to this day. And that's pretty impressive because quite a few people who started on this Nick's Thanksgiving Fest have gone on to do great things. Not only Kevin and Vanessa, but various other people we'll get to as well, and even Geraldine Laybourne, because this was at the beginning of her run of the running Nickelodeon right after Cy Snyder stepped down.
How hands-on were you with the other two, with the 2 big stories that were involved in the show?
Yeah, I wasn't involved at all with those, although I did, at the end, I did go out to California to mix the audio for mine. We mixed the others at the same time, although I think the third one was not actually ready yet, so we only mixed the very first segment at that time.
Yeah, I'm wondering if that had to do with something with the fact that Thanksgiving Dream kind of had this weird like flashback storyboard sequence for like the first 2 minutes of it, where it's just like cross dissolves between different illustrations instead of what you would expect, which is more fluid animation and lip sync and that sort of thing.
Back in the '90s, there were these storyboard, not necessarily storyboard, but they were stories that were told by famous celebrities, but the pictures were all still. Like there was a Pecos Bill one that was read by Robin Williams, and How the Leopard Got His Spots by Danny Glover, and it was just a still, and then they would transfer from one still to the next, and that's what the first 2 minutes of this reminded me of, just with this antique filter that was put on top of them.
Yeah, it was interesting.
Yeah, I could remember actually going with Vanessa when I went out to California, going with her to the airport to pick up film that had been sent for the first segment. So that one was all finished overseas.
Yeah, a lot of animation is outsourced to Korea or similar countries out east to get just a lot of that grunt work done, like the in-between frames, the keyframes, all that stuff. Well, it's mostly in-between frames because the keyframes are made by the animation director so that the in-betweeners know what to follow when they're filling in the gaps and how to like follow the motions and things like that for the characters acting and the flow of the pacing of the story and whatnot. Thanksgiving Nightmare, as we mentioned, was written and directed by Kevin Altieri. And this one was essentially about a Thanksgiving dinner that was left unattended after a family went out to walk after essentially eating too much.
Who goes for a walk after you're done eating a Thanksgiving dinner?
Yeah. I was like, that was a little contrived, but I went along with it. usually people just kind of plop onto the sofa and turn on football.
It was just a classic, post-Thanksgiving couch nap is what most people go into that food coma.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. I did find it really interesting that the humans, because a lot of the old Bugs Bunny and Looney Tunes characters, they always saw just the legs of the characters.
Yeah,
and I know that Roger Rabbit, at the very beginning segment where it was the mom, took heavy influence from it, but just that style of the size of the legs reminded me more of Roger Rabbit than it did of Looney Tunes.
Yeah, it definitely had like a classic 1940s feel to the animation style here. Maybe even a tad bit of Tiny Toon Adventures too, because they have this very specific like curvy style to it that feels old fashioned.
Yeah. And of course that all goes back to the old 40s cartoons and stuff like that. But that was cool.
Yeah.
Do you remember after they had after they had their Thanksgiving dinner and was going to go for a walk where they were going to go for dessert? Dairy Queen.
Did they actually say Dairy Queen in
They
there?
said Dairy Queen.
I hope Dairy Queen got royalties for that. Oh boy, nothing like a cherry dip sundae to whet your appetite. Yeah, I used to go to Dairy Queen a lot during hot summers back in the day.
You'll be really disappointed when they get over there and find out it's closed for Thanksgiving.
I know, right? So anyways, while they're out of the house, that pretty much leaves an opportunity for havoc to happen due to not only a pack of mice that are living in the walls, but also kind of a pack or horde of roaches too that are kind of warring against each other to see who can get more of the Thanksgiving food. For like the next 10 minutes or so, we essentially kind of just see them strategize, in their factions, kind of plan things out. And then while they distract the cat, who's like totally an innocent bystander in this cartoon, by the way, he's totally clueless. I kind of feel bad for him, but we'll talk more about that later.
Yes.
Essentially, they kind of just set up all their like utensils and mouse traps and stuff like that to launch themselves onto the table, grab as much food as possible. Just like a free for all of leftovers essentially, because there are some like bones here and there, so it's not like that there's no food, but there's still not like a full feast here. So it was a little like kind of weird for me. It was still fun to see like things play out, because I think at one point the cat was like sitting on this chair in the living room watching a soap opera, just eating popcorn.
Yeah, right.
And
the fact that the soap opera, they were arguing with each other playfully and romantically, and then she called her love interest a dingleberry.
I did notice that. It was kind of strange. Like, what are you implying here?
John, my sweet dingleberry.
And it was used correctly too. I had to make sure, did they use it the right way? Nope, they did. Which I thought was great.
It's so funny that you mentioned that, because that really stands out in my mind.
Definitely. Yeah. I think as a general rule in the animation industry, animators really love to like sneak in jokes just for like their own amusement, because obviously they'll go over most kids' heads when they watch this. And I know that really hit home for me when I watched a lot of Rocko's Modern Life growing up, because they would litter like innuendos and secret jokes everywhere throughout all the episodes.
Yeah, I ended up paying more attention to the background, to the foreground on this one for sure.
Yeah, there was a lot going on there. Essentially, after that happens, I think at one point the cat retaliates by taking a vacuum and sucking like all the food and the roaches and the mice up, so that they're all like clustered in the like bag.
Vacuum bag.
Yeah, the vacuum bag in the back of it. And then we hear a doorknob turn, so we know that they're on their way back. And then quickly, like two of the leaders of the mice and the roach faction quickly unzip the bag, get everything out there, dust covering everything. There's splatters on the wall for whatever reason, and they pretty much just take the food, run, and then the cat's left on the floor, knocked out, assumedly with a full belly, so he looks like he was framed. And then in a few seconds you just hear one big loud scream, which you can hear a clip of right here.
Excuse me, dear. I'll take care of the leftovers.
That cat got the brunt of that lady's wrath, because he got tossed right out of the house after that. But he did get away with one drumstick, so it wasn't totally for naught.
It very much reminded me of Sylvester and Tweety.
Yeah.
Right.
Very classic tropes implied here. So that was Thanksgiving Nightmare. It wasn't as nightmarish as I thought it'd be, but it was certainly like full of action and messiness that I was not prepared for.
Now, if Batchy had done Nightmare,
oh geez,
it would have.
It'd be some sort of like LSD-induced trip with like flashing strobing lights and lava lamp imagery in the background, and just like people's eyes turning different colors. Moving on to the second segment of Thanksgiving USA spots. I believe we see the turkeys again. Mm-hmm. There's three of them that are like, walking nonchalantly away from the camera, and the narrator again is trying to ask him like, hey, could you give us the scoop on Thanksgiving and what you're going to be doing for the holiday? And then they suddenly pop up one at a time. We're not turkeys, we're mooses.
Yes.
Which I thought was very cute. And then it shifts to, I believe, the rabbit in the tree who's like making a pie, and the interviewer is interested in like figuring out, oh, what type of pie is that? Are you baking something for your family? And the rabbit remarks that it gets harder and harder to cook for a family every year because it keeps getting bigger. And then we get that nice, rewarding pan over to like the dozens of kids just all over the place playing with toys on the dinner table. It's great.
Right.
And then
that was a lot of fun.
It was. It was fun to watch too. Short little bite-sized jokes. It really brings a lot of levity to the more action-packed, intense segments in the anthology that's airing. Oh, I forgot the third one. I'm sorry, I'm remembering these out of order, but the first one was like a hunter who was looking for the turkeys.
Yes.
And then he shot something off screen with his rifle. And then the interviewer guy was like asking, well, did you end up bagging Thanksgiving dinner? He wasn't specific. He didn't say turkey. And then the hunter ends up pulling up a bunch of carrots with holes shot into them because he's a vegetarian.
Who came up with the ideas for these? Did you come up with these, or did someone else come up with these ideas?
No, they gave me the script. Yeah, I don't know who the writer was, but they came up with the ideas. I guess I may have tweaked them here and there a bit, but it was definitely their script.
I really like the punchiness of the imagery because it really fit well with the fast-paced writing.
I also think, I don't remember anything about it, but I also think that the narrator was just perfect. Like he had that real 1940s voice.
He did.
Yep. He actually reminded me of Don Adams of Get Smart. Very similar voice there.
You're right.
Yeah.
I think that was a direction he went in.
Yep.
Really?
It was very Don Adamsy. Yeah.
I'm going to screw this up, but I think the narrator's guy's name in the credits is like Gary Baggio or something. Baggio, something along those lines. He's
right.
He's he's actually credited as navigator, which I thought was an interesting credit instead of narrator. Like he's guiding us through all these different stories so we don't get lost.
Right.
I did get during the nightmare sequence, whenever they were battling and then they were all on top of the dinner table, my first thought was the Nick ID with the picnic and all the ants were exhausted.
Oh, right.
That was my first thought when I saw that one.
You should play a clip of that because it's such a fun, quick one to hear. Yeah, those bumpers from the late 80s, early 90s were gold, including the ones you did, Joey, with the doo-wop dinosaurs. They're a lot of fun.
Oh, thank you.
Not to get off too much on a tangent, but what was it like working on those bumpers? Like, did you have any specific inspiration for the character designs, or what did you have to work with from Nickelodeon?
Those were done a little differently. So they were done through the agency Fred Allen, which was Fred Seibert and Alan Goodman. And I was working with a producer named Tom Pomposello. So most of my contact was with him. And, I would see Fred and Alan in the office, but I was mostly working with Tom. And Tom had the tracks already, and then we would try and come up with something that went with the tracks. And then I kind of came up with this idea of dinosaurs mixed with technology. And that's sort of, I went from there.
That's right, because they're like watching TV and they're like going on skateboards, which is very in vogue back then. So I think it worked out nice.
One of them has a Walkman, which is very...
Yep, the pterodactyl, I remember.
But at the time, it was a modern technology. And then the TV was definitely supposed to look kind of retro.
Yeah, good times. I remember the T-Rex watching it too, just like snapping his fingers like, oh, this is sketchy.
Yes, that's right.
The ones that you did, they really resonated with, I know, with Brett and with myself. You've done some great stuff on Nickelodeon, and it's ingrained in our memory. It's heavy inspiration, obviously, for our logo, which I don't know if you had seen yet, but we definitely borrowed some of the artwork that you had made, and it's just legendary. It really is.
Oh, thank you so much. Appreciate that.
Yeah, it's kind of nice to have it come full circle where you're like inspired by artists or creators of whatever walk of life growing up, and then you getting to interact with them in real time and kind of share your own experiences growing up watching their content on TV. For those who don't remember, we recently did the Are You Afraid of the Dark 30th anniversary reunion back in episode 8 of Splat Attack. And we got to see like all the people who made Are You Afraid of the Dark like come to life, including co-creators DJ McHale and Ned Candle. So considering both Alex and I were both big fans of that show growing up and how it influenced like our interest in like kids horror, it was just a treat to be able to, see them in person and talk with them and just share our memories with them.
Continuing.
Yes.
So we don't get too far sidetracked, because we do have some more questions for Joey.
Yes.
But
moving right along with our second helping of Thanksgiving dinner, we have Thanksgiving Dream, which is it was directed by Joe Pearson and was written by Terrence McDonnell. And fun fact here, Terrence was also a writer for one episode of Beetlejuice, one episode of Goof Troop, and one episode of X-Men the Animated Series. So he's the one-hit wonder in this anthology. To further add, most of his IMDb credits involve co-executive producing game shows such as Who Wants to Be a Millionaire and Win Ben Stein's Money.
Ben Stein.
I know. I love his monotone voice. It's so iconic. You can't miss it. Even when he does voice acting for like Duckman, it's right there. Yeah, or like he's in The Mask.
We're getting some clear eyes.
Right.
Oh yeah.
As for Joe Pearson, he was the key background designer for the 1985 kids series The Littles, the 1988 series DuckTales, which we all know, woo, and the weird-looking spooky themed series called Gravedale High in 1990. Not to mention 2 episodes of Tiny Toon Adventures in 91 and 92, 2 episodes of Our Real Monsters in 94, and last but not least, 16 episodes of Rocko's Modern Life from 1993 to 1995. Wow. So he got around to Nickelodeon pretty well after this. Just another trivia fact before we continue with Thanksgiving Dream. According to a newspaper clipping I found through the fandom page, this Nick special was actually brought to you by Cinnamon Toast Crunch. And I know back then a lot of Nick specials that they did were sponsored by cereal companies, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, they're centered around kids. They want to get kids' attention, so it makes sense that they would sponsor a lot of these.
Eat cereal and watch our TV. Doesn't get more closer than that. What happens in Thanksgiving Dream, by contrast, is a little bit more mellow, but then it ramps up a bit later. So it starts out with like some flashbacks about these two kids who are playing outside, and they mention how it's like the Great Depression or just after it, and they're worrying what they're going to do for Thanksgiving because they don't have anything to eat. And fortunately, their mom is like trying her best to provide as a single mother, but she just can't quite make it. So she just tells her kids, hope for the best and send them off to bed, and they begin dreaming a fantasy sequence. And the sequence is pretty interesting because it actually reminded me a bit of those like Tom and Jerry sequences back when they would like play around in the kitchen and they like ice skate on the floor when it was like turned to ice. And it just created a more surreal element to the kitchen where you had like food and tables and all sort of like kitchen appliances coming alive just to like have a happy time, do this very elaborate like synchronized swimming type choreography all around the kitchen, including a turkey stuffing himself. I thought that was interesting. And it brought these kids into the thick of the moment where they had to essentially tame this strange like yeast dough monster that risen when there was too much yeast added to the dough. As like these weird disembodied pink gloves were cracking open live eggs and somehow like kneading it. The logistics behind how these characters are moving and how they interact and who dies and who lives is beyond me, but it was definitely a sight.
I got real Sausage Party movie vibes watching this one as an adult.
Whoa. I just had deja vu. I had a dream that you said that exact quote to me like a week ago. Whoa.
So
maybe this podcast episode was my Thanksgiving dream.
Or maybe this is a dream.
You never know. In the end, we're all made of dreams and stardust, right? If you want to go to Neil deGrasse Tyson era levels of consciousness. But anyways, the kids essentially, here's what they did. They grabbed a salt and pepper shaker and they started sprinkling pepper all over the dough as it was about like to consume them, because it was like consuming everything else in the kitchen. And it started sneezing uncontrollably, and somehow it just like obliterated it. And they woke up, everything was kind of back to normal. But as we find out the next morning, when the two kids enter the kitchen, everything is just stacked with food. I'm not even talking about a Thanksgiving turkey just on the table and you got like all the appetizers and side plates on there. There's like cabinets bursting with cans. You got drinks everywhere. You've got boxes of food everywhere. It's like someone went to a food pantry or like one of those food donation places, ransacked it, and then just dumped it all in the kitchen because it's like wall to wall of food. That was interesting. It kind of felt like Christmas morning, but with a Thanksgiving flair. And they ended up getting to celebrate a very pleasant Thanksgiving, the three of them together.
In reality, Mom went and got a job overnight and just stacked it while they were sleeping.
Either that or she found the Thanksgiving fairy and told them to pay their house a visit because Santa's too busy with Christmas, so he can't help people out for other holidays. You hear that, Jack Skellington? He can't help you with Halloween, so don't bug him.
It's fairy with wings, but they're little pilgrim hats that flap.
I like to think it's just a flying turkey, like that talking chicken from I Love Chicken and Ren and Stimpy, but it's got like a pilgrim hat or like a Native American headdress, and it's just flying in with its little wand, and it's like everything it touches turns to like mashed potatoes or yams or sweet potatoes or cranberry, and everything's wonderful. Before we wrap up with the episode, we have 3 more Thanksgiving USA spots. So we start with Thanksgiving in space, believe it or not. We have this character who is by himself floating through his spaceship, and when the narrator asks him how he celebrates Thanksgiving, he essentially demonstrates through like these dehydrated pills that he like puts water on with an eyedropper that they all like pop into his meal that's floating around him. And when the narrator asks, well, what does it taste? What does Thanksgiving dinner taste like in space? And he's like, darned if I know. I've been trying to catch my food all these years because it keeps floating around. And I thought that was so clever.
You could have been the voice of the astronaut.
I probably could have. I do like doing voice work as a hobby. That's why I started a podcast. So you never know where it's going to lead. But anyways, we get back down to Earth for the second segment. And we find out that old grandma and grandpa have finished their Thanksgiving meal and they're quite full from all the turkey. So as they go to rest on the couch, the narrator asks them, how are you going to spend Thanksgiving now? Are you going to take a nap to get rid of all that tryptophan? And grandpa's like, heck no, we're going to watch me some football. And then they just like slap on a helmet and, get one of those like team flags and they start doing rah, rah, rah. It's quite a fun bit. And then
that is the most realistic thing of the entire show.
I'd say so. Yeah.
Not to say that we go to Nickelodeon looking for realism, but that was the one thing that I was like, yeah, that's real. That happens.
There's only two things that happen after Thanksgiving dinner. Let's be honest here. And that's falling asleep and going nuts over football. Yep. Last but not least, we have our last Thanksgiving short where yet again, we visit the turkeys in their wild habitats. And we find out that there's 4 of them sitting at a dinner table and they have it all set for Thanksgiving dinner. And the narrator, finally asked him, please, I just wanted to get a word with you. How do turkeys celebrate Thanksgiving? Because we don't even know what it's like from their perspective. And then one of the turkeys who's setting the table says, you really want to know? And then he removes like that silver like dish thing that covers the meal. And it reveals a pilgrim who's like, oh, were you expecting the Easter Bunny? It's a great way to end, just a variety of Thanksgiving cartoons that, they all serve like different parts of the Thanksgiving dinner. They each brought something different to the table. And I thought it's pretty delightful to watch and adequately paced at a half-hour show.
Yeah, there was right in the middle was just this downer of emotion. If it wasn't for the USA segments keeping things lively, I would have found the middle portion to be really sad and depressing, because the beginning of the nightmare was a little contrived, but it's who cares? It's just a silly special. Yeah. And then once they got to the battle, it's like, ooh, this is kind of fun. I'm really enjoying this. And then I felt bad for the cat with him just getting booted. It's like, oh man, that stinks. And then it goes right into the depression. It's like, oh, you're just making it worse.
Yeah.
But then it went with a whole Tom and Jerry, let's just have fun. And it really was fun. And I really enjoyed those 2 segments of each of those little skits. But really, the USA segments were my favorite. And if the whole half hour was just more of those, I'd have been just as happy. Those were the best parts of the whole show.
Yeah, I was the same way.
Thank you.
And it's not just because you're our guest. That's why we asked you, because we really love those bits.
Yeah, and we wanted to hear your take on it. Speaking of which, were there any challenges that you were facing while creating these Thanksgiving USA spots for the Thanksgiving Fest?
I mean, there's always, in animation, you're always fighting a deadline. There's always that battle of, is it good enough? Potentially millions of people are going to watch it, but also it has to get done at a certain time. So that's something you're always, you're looking at your pencil test and are you happy with it? Can you send it to production, or do you want to tweak it a little more and risk getting, falling behind?
Yeah, it's always a delicate balance.
You do have to deliver on time. That's pretty important.
Yeah, because you got to get paid for your work. Otherwise, it doesn't do you any good to have something perfect if you can't deliver it or, get a payout.
Right.
And build a reputation as somebody who's reliable.
Yeah. And actually, you've been going pretty steady with your career in animation and even children's books, right?
Yeah. I mean, after that, I did a lot of work for Sesame Street, many seasons of Elmo's World. I did the channel animations on the TV for Elmo's World and other projects for Sesame Street. And recently I did a stint at Frederator, doing animation for YouTube for like kids nursery rhymes. To bring it full circle, we actually turned out a new cartoon every 3 weeks. You know, that's modern production and obviously like limited animation and reusing stuff and, you know, doing things very smart and economically.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing to think you can turn out animation that quickly. But if you got like a solid pipeline and, you know, the right technology on your side, then it's possible.
Yeah. I was pretty much the whole pipeline.
Oh boy. I relate to you on so many levels, Joey, when I was working on my animated films in college, because, you know,
yeah, right.
You kind of have to wear many hats and make sure that you're your own boss and keeping track of, you know, the deadlines and making sure all these aspects of it are, you know, where they need to be by a certain time. And, you know, if you fall behind, that's when you got to bring other people on crew to kind of help you out with like the coloring or the inking or anything else that's kind of tedious, just so you can get it moving along. So
yeah, and definitely on the Nick Thanksgiving Fest, I had like a team of cell painters and inkers helping me. And, you know, even though that was hard and parts of it were tedious, you met a lot of great people. There was a camaraderie to it. And so that's something that's you don't have now, but, you know, it's all trade-offs, I guess.
Right. Yeah. I mean, technology just make things more convenient in terms of like collaborating with people online, but it's not quite the same as being there in person with them to be able to, you know, check their work, give them feedback, you know, test things out for yourself. So it's a different mode of working, but it's pretty much just reflective of the times, and, you know, the right people make it work no matter what the medium is or what the workflow is like.
Vanessa Coffey, in another interview, not with us, but with someone else, had commented that the Thanksgiving Fest at the time was the one thing that they put the most money into for anything Nickelodeon related. Did you or any of the animators ever express any pressure on wanting this to be something good and something you didn't lose money on?
No, I wouldn't say that was like ever pressed on us, but I think I knew at the time that this had the potential to like dovetail into their doing pilots. So it was kind of like their test run.
Yeah, it's interesting because it definitely seemed like it gave them the confidence to move forward with Nicktoons 2 years later, as they were gathering their, you know, 3 titans together to show the world, hey, we're Nickelodeon and we can make original content too. We're not just, you know, syndicated cartoons like Count Duckula or Danger Mouse. And we're not just going to put stuff on here that's like vegetable good for you, but not entertaining. That was, you know, mostly laden in the pinball era of Nickelodeon. We can give you stuff that's fun, exciting, educational, and makes you want to come back for more. And that's exactly what they did right here, hitting all the right buttons. And I would say, you know, Nick's Thanksgiving Fest laid the groundwork for that. It was their testing ground. They laid the foundation, and that gave them, you know, maybe the fuel or the confidence or what have you they needed to take it to the next step and really open things up for all of us. Actually, do you want me to mention that quote that Vanessa Coffey said? Because I wrote it down and I thought it was pretty interesting.
Yeah, go ahead.
Her take on it. So when working on Nick's Thanksgiving Fest, here's what Vanessa Coffey have to say in terms of like the process and shifting gears from her previous projects. After working at Marvel Productions and on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, I decided to move to New York City. I didn't want to do animation anymore because that's basically toy-driven properties, and that's not what I wanted to do. I had never even heard of Nick. I was without work and somebody mentioned Nick to me, and I said, I don't do animation anymore. But I went in anyway, and I met with Debbie Beese and told her of my experience. I had quite a bit of it, and she said, we're kind of interested in getting into some animation. I met with Herb Scannell, who said, we really can't afford to do animation right now, but why don't you do a special for us while we're figuring this out? So I did the Thanksgiving special in 1989 as an independent producer at the time.
And this was on Decider.com. And for anybody who is aware of the book Slimed, that's the interviewer. That there's a whole segment on Decider.com that's about the creation of Nicktoons from many of the creators. And the reason he put it there was because there was too much in the book. So this is kind of a bonus content thing.
Yeah, it's good to hear different perspectives about how, shows like these came to be, because we as viewers wouldn't normally, see that side of it beyond what we see on the TV. So to have that behind the scenes look gives us a extra level of understanding and appreciation.
I could tell you my funny Vanessa Coffey story.
Yes, please.
So when my animation was finished, they sent me out to California to work on the sound mix. But it was the first time I had ever driven a car on my own.
Oh boy.
Because I'm from New York City.
Mm-hmm.
And I had just gotten my driver's license. So Vanessa met me at the airport. She had a car and I had a rental car. And the idea was I was going to follow her to my hotel. But she decided there was no way I would survive on the highway. So she took me through the hills of Hollywood. So I'm like, holding on for dear life, going around these turns and trying to keep, it's not easy following another car also. And it's the first time I've ever driven alone in a car. So by some miracle, we get to the hotel. I'm basically like kissing the ground when I get out of the car. And Vanessa looks at me and says, "You got to become more of a leadfoot if you're going to survive here."
I mean, she ain't kidding about that, because I lived in LA for about a year in 2019, and I was trying to, break into Nickelodeon Animation Studio over there, and I was right there with you, man. The people who drive there, that's like super ultra advanced. They will kill you if you walk the wrong way across the street.
Once I got to the hotel, I never wanted to leave the hotel.
Yeah.
I am done. Just bring the animation to me. I'm done.
Yep.
Yes.
Can I just do it in my hotel room? Well, do we have any thoughts before we want to give our rating for Nick's Thanksgiving Fest?
No, I did have something to show you guys, but it relates more to the IDs.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't know if you saw this thing that Culture Fly did. They do these surprise boxes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, the Nick box. Yes.
They did a towel.
Oh wow!
Based on the
love it.
So cool.
Yeah.
You should hang that up in your room.
So now, I thought you would get a kick out of that.
Yeah.
I also believe, and I may have the wrong one, but I believe Nostalgia Society over on Instagram, they had actually found one of the watches, and I think they sent that to you also. And
they did. I should be wearing it now, but I'm not.
But I remember them expressing how excited they were that they found that and they were able to get that to you. So that was really cool.
Was so nice of them. Yeah, it was really sweet.
If I remember correctly, I think it was a yellow or orange watch with like blue inside, and it was like a skateboarding dinosaur. Do you remember?
I think it was more the volcano.
Yes.
With just the characters in front.
Yeah. With the three brontosauruses.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I knew it was something from there. Very cool.
So shout out to Nostalgia Society. If you guys want some really cool content, go check them out. They got some great stuff.
Definitely.
Yeah.
We should mention that, listeners, for anyone who's been tuning into our episodes up until now, we now have a rating system for our episode reviews. It took us a while, but I finally came up with something that would, work for our episode review format episodes. So we're going to give you the rundown of what it's like real quick before we give you our official rating for this episode.
So what's the theme with our rating system here?
Well, I mean, it's Splat Attack, so I got to incorporate Splat into it somehow. It ranges from Splatastrophe, which is like a grade F, Splatful, which is a grade D, Splatverage, which is grade C, Splatisfactory, which is grade B, Splatcellent, which is A, and just to take it a few steps further, kind of like how the Devil May Cry video games would do it, I have Splatterific for S, Splat Standing for double S, and Splatceptional for triple S, aka God tier. I thought it'd be fun. So Alex, what do you give this rating for Nick's Thanksgiving Fest?
Well, considering that there was, I mean, for a 20-minute, 24-minute special, and there was a bit of a downer right in the middle for me, and I would have loved to have seen more of the USA things. It's not as high as I would like it to be, but it still was very influential on how Nickelodeon moved forward. So I give it Splatisfactory.
That's fair. I mean, it's not too far off from what I gave it. Just because I have the animation background, I was a little bit pickier. You know, I noticed like repeating loops. You know, in Thanksgiving Nightmare, they literally did not do any voice lip syncing, and I was like, "Oh, those dirty cheats!" they didn't even make one pair of mouth lips move. They all did it like off screen or like just showed the legs, and for that I gotta knock it down a little bit to Splatfridge. So you know, it's pretty much that, and the first 2 minutes of like just cross dissolves or wipes of the still images in Thanksgiving Dream, that it kind of suffers because it breaks me out of the immersion for like the whole special. But like you, I did enjoy the Joey Album brand Thanksgiving USA spots the most. So Joey, if you want to go back to Nickelodeon with this recording and tell them, hey, these guys think my stuff is pretty cool, you want to give me a series, you should do it because your stuff totally rocks.
Well, thank you. It's what, like 30 years later?
Yeah, good to have a comeback. Doo-Wop Dinosaurs get their own series. You never know.
Put it on Paramount Plus with the others, people who are checking it back out for nostalgia reasons.
Yeah, right.
It works for me.
Listeners at home, would you like to see Joey Album make an animated series for Nickelodeon in the 2020s? If so, write us at splatattack2021@gmail.com or contact Joey Album on Instagram at the same name. But that being said, we actually have another review to do, because since we did not have this format for episode 5 of Splat Attack, The Legend of the War Fan of the 47 Ronin, we're also going to give our rating for that too. So we're all caught up. So Alex, what would you like to give for the War Fan of the 47 Ronin for your grade?
Well, Legends of the Hidden Temple, it's hard to really give it a bad rating. I mean, even on some of the worst Temple runs, it's still enjoyable. But that episode, and I think also because of the fact that we got to interview somebody from that one, it's splatterific, hands down.
Yeah, and for those who quite can't follow yet, that's an S rating, so one step above A. We love it. Oh yes, I'm gonna give it a splatterific rating as well, because for the same reasons. I love the legends. I love seeing like those cool illustrations that are like straight out of a history book in the moat sequence. I love the moat crossing segments. You know, the temple games were really neck and neck. It didn't leave me bored. I thought all of the different ones they did were interesting, like the bouncy thing that leads to the top where they had to hit the gong, and then the one where they had to like drop the rings on the pagodas from overhead. Just gotta give it to them for going all out with, you know, every segment of that episode. And even though our guest did not make it to the temple, I still found it as a sweet retribution for his opponent Jeremy, as he goofed up with his fatal flaw of locking the door to the Tomb of the Headless Kings. So for that entertainment value and the stellar all-rounded experience, I have to give it splatterific as well.
And I believe we have one last little segment to take part in with Joey.
Yes. Let us play one of our established segments that we, you know, kind of got going in the previous episodes. Let's play This or That. This or that. This or that. Time to play This or That. So for our This or That segment, we're going to give Joey some Thanksgiving themed choices, and we would like to know if you would like to prefer this or that. And Alex, you're going to play well, since I'm the one asking them.
Since you made the questions, I will answer.
Yes. So Joey, question 1: mashed potatoes or sweet potatoes?
I think I'm going to go mashed potatoes.
And I am in agreement.
I like mashed potatoes too. I have been switching over to sweet potatoes though to help my eyesight, so I don't have to wear glasses as often. So I'm a little partial to sweet potatoes, but mostly mashed potatoes out of habit. Question 2: cranberry sauce or green beans?
Wow, they're not usually mutually exclusive.
I know.
But I'm not a huge green bean person, so I'm going to go cranberry sauce.
And I am the opposite. I'm not much of a cranberry person, so I'll take the green beans.
Interesting. For me, I got to go with the cranberry sauce, specifically the kind stuck in a can, because for some reason I just love it jellied.
Oh, I love it jellied too. But
Yeah.
I know it's not very politically correct, or people like the crunchy one with all the bits, but
too
I like
textured for me.
jellied.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I just wanted to see it like slink right out of the can,
Yes.
like drop and jiggle a little bit on the plate, and then slice it in half with a butter knife. That's how I want it.
I want it spam-like.
Oh boy. Number 3, turkey or stuffing?
I don't know how you can have one without the other, but I could actually. I'm gonna go stuffing on this one.
As do I. I'm not a big turkey person, but you give me some stovetop stuffing or some homemade version of it, I'm down.
Interesting. Yeah. I feel like if it's well seasoned and moist enough, you can get a lot of flavor from the stuffing. However, I'm going to have to go with turkey because I love me some dark meat. Question 4, football after dinner or napping after dinner?
A little of both, maybe. Turn on the football.
How about nap?
Football game? Yeah, and then you're in a nap before you know it.
There you go. Yeah. I mean, you don't have to do this or that. You can pick a little of both. I'm just curious about everyone's answers. Alex, how about you?
I am not a football person, so I'll just look at the inside of my eyelids.
Yep. I'm going to go straight to bed after this too, and maybe take some leftovers with me or apple pie. And last but not least, for question 5 of this or that, Thanksgiving at a relative's or Thanksgiving at home?
Wow, that's actually a really interesting question, but we almost always do it at home. It's nice to mix it up once in a while and go to somebody else's house and not have to do everything.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, good answer. How about you, Alex?
Mine really is a bit of both, being that we have 2 families that we got to go to. We have my wife's family and my family. Even though Thanksgiving is only one day, it's split between 2 days. And for one family, we have it here at home with the relatives here. And then another, we go over to another family's house and have it with them. But we've never really had Thanksgiving at home, just the immediate family. It's always with relatives.
Interesting. Yeah, it seems like an appropriate time to get together with them, during this time of year, just to like hang out, catch up, and pig out on turkey. For me, I'm actually I'm leaning towards a mix of both, but really, in my heart, I'm going to say Thanksgiving at my relatives, because I have these fond memories of my family, like throwing a bunch of stuff into our car and then driving up to Vermont from Connecticut, because, I grew up in New England. And we would drive up to like northern Vermont on top of this mountain called Fat Mountain. And my dad's sister and her husband had this really cool like mountain house that just had a big living room on the side of it. So usually, all of my relatives on my dad's side would drive up, and we'd have like a table that was at least like 12, 13 feet long, and we'd all set it together. And, we'd have the TV in the corner just in case anyone wanted to go there afterwards. And I just remember just having a lot of fond memories of going up there, seeing everyone working in the kitchen, setting everything up, and just spending time together. And that's something I don't necessarily do as often as I did back then in the 90s, but I definitely remember and cherish the memories still today. But actually, before we go, I have one more thing to add. We actually have a Nick News update that I really want to add because it happened to hit me yesterday when I was doing my notes. So as in episode 5 of the Legends of the Hin Temple reboot, we see an old friend return to compete on the show. As mentioned in the previous Splat Attack episode, 20 most memorable temple runs, our number 12 spot on the list for the episode Henry VIII's Great Seal featured a Silver Snakes contestant. Yes. Featured a Silver Snakes contestant named Nick, who was scared right out of the temple from the Tomb of the Ancient Kings. Everyone remembers that moment, whether you listened to our episode or just saw it on TV back in the 90s. Now, it looks like he and a fellow Legends alumni, a green monkey named Josh, are back at it 20 years later. On behalf of us Legends fans at Splat Attack, we congratulate both Nick and Josh for getting back on the show to get their redemption 28 years later. They're both now Blue Barracudas competing for the grand prize in Olmec's Temple. And you can find the episode titled The 10,000 Year Necklace of Rama episode on demand for your local cable provider to see how far they make it in the competition. And I might add, along with a surprise guest waiting for them in Olmec's Temple. So pretty fun stuff. I know we got some Legends run off here, and we probably won't go to Legends for a while because we got a lot of more fun-filled deep dives for 90s Nick content. But Joey, Alex, thank you so much for being here tonight. It was a blast.
Yes. Thank you, Joey, very, very much.
Yeah, guys, thanks so much for having me, and I wish both of you a very happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving to you as well, and happy Thanksgiving out there to you Slimesters and Gackoids, however you choose to spend it and whoever you choose to spend it with. Just as a closing, you can follow us at Splat Attack Podcast on Instagram. Feel free to reach out to us via DM or email at splatattack2021@gmail.com. Send us your questions, talk to us about some of our previous episodes. And if you like the content that we're creating for you guys, feel free to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, leave us 5 stars, Podbean, whatever, you name it. Wherever we are, just let us know that you're there and you're listening. And tune in next time as we invade our classroom with Nick Takes Over Your School, a day trip that'll curb your November slump with a slime-filled pick-me-up. Alex, if you will. Let's drain the slime tank and head on home.
Aye, co-captain.
Splat you later.
Reprise the theme song and roll the credits.
Hard to believe, folks, but it's time to say goodbye.
Nighty-night.
Hey, check us out next time for more adventure and another great legend of the Hidden Temple.
What'll we do till then?
Chill for a couple. We'll be back.
You're on, Nick.
And it was time for the superhero to move on. I declare this meeting of the Midnight Society closed.
Bye-bye.